With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, as always, you can text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, everything you need. So I'm coming to you from a hotel room today in Kiowa Island, the sanctuary. I'm here for an event. I spoke this morning. I got to play golf, and my tee time is at 3:20 on what they tell me is a terribly awful course. So I'll suck and just blame it on the course. And then I got to speak again tomorrow. It's former Vice President Mike Pence has started Advancing American Freedom, a think tank in Washington, D.C., and an advocacy group for conservatism. Asked me to speak with Rich Lowry from National Review this morning. Got to speak tomorrow and then a dinner tonight. In the meantime, they scheduled it all around this, so I can do this live with you here. And as I start the show, I got to laugh. A buddy of mine, literally, as I'm coming on air, texted me and says, "Did you see this?" So the Trump campaign sent out a fundraising email with the mountains of Georgia. It's just, they're the mountains of Georgia, the former Soviet province and now independent nation of Georgia, or pronounced Georgia over there. It's not actually the mountains of the state of Georgia in the United States. Oh, some volunteer staffer somewhere is having a moment. In any event, welcome to the show. Okay, so let's start with the polling, and I will spend a little more time. I'll wait until next hour to get into the Mark Robinson fallout, but you should know the polling is actually very good for Donald Trump today, even as the national polling doesn't appear to be. There was a lot of panic. The CBS News poll and the NBC poll actually have a big jumps for Kamala Harris. Now, a couple of things you need to know. First of all, individual polls don't matter. The polling average does. Polling average, Kamala Harris at about 2.2% in the Real Clear Politics polling average. Nate Silver has actually shifted the race nationally into Kamala Harris's favor, saying she's got about a 53% chance now of winning the Electoral College. She has a 70% chance of winning the popular vote as the polling dynamics shift. At the same time, the internal dynamics in the state-level polling are working against her in the Sun Belt states of Arizona and Georgia and North Carolina. Again, we'll talk about the impact of Mark Robinson later, but in Arizona, the race has shifted decisively to Donald Trump. There's been an 11-point shift in the Hispanic vote in Arizona towards Donald Trump, not just among men, but men and women combined, an 11-point shift to Donald Trump. In Georgia, Trump continues to hold a couple-point lead over Kamala Harris. And I got to tell you, so I'm here with Brian Kemp at this event, and he spoke last night. I wasn't there, but people tell. He was saying that while he remains frustrated with the Trump ground game in Georgia, he does actually think Trump is going to win the state of Georgia. There's concerns about North Carolina, which we'll get into later. The problem here now is Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Let me give you the lay of the land here. If Donald Trump were to win Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, he still does need to pick up some one of the Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. So if Donald Trump wins Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, he's at 268 electoral college votes. So he needs 2 more to win. Now, by the way, if Nebraska moves its electoral college votes to be consolidated, he'd come up a 1 short, so he'd be at 269. That also hurts Kamala Harris. It complicates her math. Pennsylvania has 19 electoral college votes. Michigan has 15. Wisconsin has 10. Interestingly enough, with the census in 2030, that's going to boost Republican numbers again, with Texas, Florida, and Georgia probably picking up more electoral college votes, and Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York reducing their number, and California as well. So that over time gives an electoral college advantage to the GOP. Right now, however, we're standing at a virtually tied race. And I don't care who you talk to, even the pollsters I'm talking to at this event say this race is more tied than either 2016 or 2020. So you have the Real Clear Politics polling average. Harris is at 2.2% nationally, 49.4 to 47.2. But when you look at the actual battleground states, Donald Trump is up 0.1%. This is where the ground game comes in, and the ground game matters greatly. And as I have mentioned, and I'm sure I will multiple times today and throughout this week, there are signs that the Trump campaign is struggling with its ground game. The Associated Press has a big story about Wisconsin, Michigan, and North Carolina, that the ground game seems to be non-existent, that even the Trump campaign team is concerned and they're pulling more and more back in-house. The Arizona and Nevada ground game has been outsourced to third-party groups. The FEC allowed coordination with these outside groups to do ground game operations. I should explain, federal election law prohibits coordination between a presidential campaign and a non-campaign entity, meaning any of these super PACs. But the FEC has said that outside ground game operations can be coordinated, but there are certain lines. Like, for example, you can't get the day-to-day stats from the ground game. You can tell the ground game, we're interested in this state, go organize it. And you can do that. And you can tell people, send money to this outside group. But the outside group still can't give you daily reporting. They still can't give you that level of communication that you can get if you're inside the campaign. There has to be some firewalls between an outside group and a campaign under federal law. So campaigns have their campaign committees, and you have outside groups. A campaign under federal law can say, this is our outside group, we trust this group, go use this group, fund this group. But then you can't have day-to-day conversations between that group and the campaign. So you're flying a little blind. The Kamala Harris campaign has hundreds of staffers in each of the swing states on the payroll. And then they coordinate with volunteers on the ground, particularly from college campuses, to go knock on doors in key areas. The Trump campaign's not allowed to do that with these outside groups because they're outside groups. They're not the campaign. The Trump campaign is not fully staffed inside these states at the level Kamala Harris is, doesn't have the money. So in a very tight race, the ground game really does matter, like I said on Friday. And there is concern even inside the Trump campaign that they should have done this in-house, and now they're rearranging it to be more in-house, which is good. They still have time because, remember, what is the Trump campaign focused on? The Trump campaign is focused on low-propensity voters. And, in fact, the data in even the CBS and the NBC poll shows, and this is bad for Kamala Harris, that among voters who are not frequent voters, Donald Trump kicks her butt. So among likely voters, and what is a likely voter? A likely voter is someone who says they're going to vote, knows when the election is, and voted last in the last election. When was the last election? An off-year election. And a lot of people don't vote in off-year elections. So a likely voter is someone who knows they're going to vote this time, knows when the election is, and voted in the last off-year election. That is a high propensity voter. And those voters do like Kamala Harris. But when you go to people who only vote in presidential elections, they're not regular voters, they overwhelmingly like Donald Trump. If Trump can convert those voters, he's absolutely going to win this race. He is ahead I realize it's 1/10 of 1 point in the polling average. It's very close. She's ahead in Nevada. She's ahead in Wisconsin. She's ahead in Michigan. She's ahead in Pennsylvania. And based on those numbers, she would win the Electoral College right now. But that Donald Trump maintains this polling average and everything else is so close, voter enthusiasm can get him across the finish line. He's just got to be able to figure out how to get those low propensity voters out to vote. And that's where the ground game does come in handy. So when you get to Election Day, if Donald Trump, let's put it to you this way, if Donald Trump loses on Election Day, the moral of the story is not going to be that it's stolen. It's going to be that you can't hand your ground game to a third-party group and expect them to do it competently for you. Charlie Kirk's in over his head. He's heading the outside ground game. If Kamala Harris loses on Election Day, it's because her voters, and this is the wild thing, and you see it in the CBS poll, you see it in the NBC poll, you see it in the New York Times Siena College poll. The people most likely to like Kamala Harris and say they will vote for her are actually the least likely of the likely voters to think they're going to go show up and vote. Let me say that again because it's kind of confusing. Her constituency in these polls, the CBS poll, the NBC poll, the New York Times poll, the more you like Kamala Harris, the less you're sure you're going to go vote on Election Day. Yeah, you heard me. Her voters, they're not sure they want to go vote for her. What it is they just don't like Donald Trump. It's not that they really like Kamala Harris. It's that they don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump's voters are absolutely going to go vote for him. And that's where the whole ground game thing helps Donald Trump, or doesn't hurt Donald Trump, because his voters are so enthusiastic for him. Kamala Harris's voters, they're not actually super enthusiastic for Kamala Harris. So the race is very tied. And y'all, here's the thing. You got Alan, what's his name? You know, the prognosticator. He's like, I've gotten every election right. No, he hasn't. He missed 2000. He didn't get 2000 right. And he actually called this for Joe Biden. He said this was going to be Joe Biden's race. He never even could conceive of the fact that Joe Biden would be booted from the race. He's not a prognosticator. What he does is he looks at races. He sees where things are heading. And he picks. And this is a 50-50 race right now. He could be right and he'll take credit. He could be wrong. He thinks Kamala Harris is going to win. I actually still think, given that her most enthusiastic voters aren't sure they want to go vote for her, and the economy and the election dynamic of angry voters, that benefits Donald Trump. And so I think Donald Trump still has that latent advantage in this race. Here's the thing. Who wants to preserve the status quo? Who wants to preserve this status quo? Nobody. Even Democratic voters don't want to preserve the status quo. That's why they're more enthusiastic about Kamala Harris than Joe Biden, because they can convince themselves that she's a change from the status quo. But she's not. She preserves the status quo. And in preserving the status quo, I think a lot of voters are going to show up on Election Day or early voting and say, I just can't stomach 4 more years of this. And that gives Donald Trump an advantage. Now, it's his race to lose, and he might lose it. He might. I mean, everything's got to be on their A. You got to stay on the A game. And when you've got, like, for example, the fundraising people here in Georgia sending out visuals that are actually a different country claiming that it's the state of Georgia. I mean, little things like that, they matter. The ground game does matter. The Mark Robinson collapse in North Carolina does matter. It does put some of this stuff in play. But right now, I mean, he's ahead in the battlegrounds. Nate Silver, again, says Kamala Harris probably has a 53% chance of winning the Electoral College. She's got a 70% chance of the popular vote. He's probably right in these shifts, but the fact that Hispanic voters in Arizona have shifted pretty dramatically in the last month towards Donald Trump matters. This, by the way, is why I think he should do the CNN debate. He's come out today. He says he's not going to do the CNN debate. All of you who live in Georgia, let me tell you guys who live outside of Georgia, problem. Back in 2020, then Senator David Perdue ran against now Senator Jon Ossoff. They had a debate. Perdue didn't do great in the debate. They had another debate, and Perdue did not show up at the debate. And they still did the debate, and it was Jon Ossoff standing on stage next to an empty podium. And they asked him questions, and he would point to the podium and say, unlike my opponent who couldn't respect the voters to be here, CNN's going to do this debate with Kamala Harris. It's not going to be a town hall. It's going to be a debate. There are going to be two podiums there, one for her, one for Donald Trump. The question is whether or not Donald Trump shows up for it. Right now he says he's not. That could give Kamala Harris a last-minute advantage.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here, live from Kiowa Island, South Carolina, here for this conference. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, you are more than welcome to at least try to get past the call screener. So, okay, two issues. One, Kamala Harris has decided not to go to the Al Smith dinner. Now, for those of you not familiar with it, the Al Smith dinner is a roast and speech that every presidential candidate since the 1950s has spoken at, if not earlier than that. It's a very big deal in New York political circles, and she'll be the very first presidential candidate to not speak at it since World War II, basically. Donald Trump is going to go. Remember 2016, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump together went. The Catholic community is insulted, but it also kind of shows you that they're not as powerful constituency group as they once thought that they themselves were. The other issue is this CNN debate, as I was mentioning before we went to commercial break. Donald Trump says he's not going to do this CNN debate. At this point, I think it doesn't hurt him to do another debate. It's going to give Kamala Harris free exposure. Now, the Trump team says they actually think Kamala Harris exposing herself does her no favors. And they actually think she could be her own worst enemy, letting her be on stage and talking. I understand their point because she is a walking word salad. But I do also think that CNN showed in the last debate that they're not going to do the live fact-checking like ABC decided to do. They're going to let the candidates hash it out themselves. And so it would actually be a good thing for Trump to be on that stage pushing Harris in another debate. She did get a little bit of a bounce, a small bounce, but she got one out of that last debate. Now, the corollary here, however, is Donald Trump doesn't do it. It's just going to be on CNN. Probably the other news networks are not going to air it like they did the first debate. But I do think CNN did a good job. I mean, Joe Biden's no longer in the race. I think it would behoove him. Listen, whoever loses this election, little things are going to matter. And people are going to blame all sorts of different things together. And I just do think that both sides should be a little careful about turning down things like the Al Smith dinner for Harris and the CNN debate for Donald Trump because the race is so tied. It is so tied that any little thing could shake up the race. So they both better be careful how they do it. Now, I want you guys to know, so I'm in the sanctuary at Kiowa Island, so it is so nice. I don't need my Eden Pure Thunderstorm, but it's in my travel bag. In fact, they sent me an updated one. They're no longer the little black devices. They're the silvery devices. I got the older one, but just like the old one, this one, it doesn't have like a filter subscription. It's just got electrostatic plates, and it works. You can plug it up with a USB cord. You can plug it into the wall. It's got a plug that pops out, but so it's not sticking up all the time. You can fold it in, and it's just a device that just packs a wallop. And right now, you can buy one, get one free. It's the BOGO deal. So you buy 5, you get 5 free. You buy 10, you get 10 free. You buy 1, you get 1 free. All you do is go to EdenPureDeals.com, and you put in the promo code EricBogo, ERICKBOGO, at EdenPureDeals.com. You will wipe out odors. No odor can stand up to the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. It just works. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is EricBogo, ERICKBOGO, at EdenPureDeals.com. Go buy one, get one for free. Eric Bogo. Greetings, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here from Kiowa Island. Just so you guys can note it, if I sound a little glitchy today, it's not your radio station. It is I've got the best connection possible from this island, and it crackles a little bit. So just so you understand, don't call your local radio station and complain. It's actually my fault, but doing the best of the situation I can. I'm here today and tomorrow. And then I'll try to sort it out in the commercial break if I can. Right now, let's go to Victor's phone call, calling from Orlando, Florida. Victor, you're going to be up first today. Welcome.
Thank you, Eric, for having me on the show today. I appreciate it. My
Sure.
question is, we just reading on the news this letter of the Trump assassin and the letter he had to the prosecutors, or the prosecutor submitted, basically promoting his attempt on Trump, how he failed, but also offering $150,000 to those who would finish their job. My question is, why is the media allowed to report on this as if they're promoting it like soldiers of fortune?
Oh, that's a great question. So I've got a theory on this one, and my theory is that it's going to become public record anyway. It's going to become public record because the Department of Justice has to present it as proof for why he should not be let out of prison. We shouldn't stop the media from reporting on these things. It is news. We don't want the left wants censorship. We shouldn't. Depending on how the media reports it, though. I mean, obviously, the guy was kind of crazy. And I do kind of think as well the Department of Justice decided that we want everybody to know he's not really a Democrat. He's insane. But again, I realize a lot of people's reaction is going to be, we shouldn't want this out there. This could inspire people, but it is news, and I don't fault the media for reporting on the news. And the Department of Justice can't actually keep something like this quiet. And the reason they can't is because they've got to show to a judge why this guy is not fit to be released pending trial. And this is proof positive the guy should not be released. And you can't make that in a sealed filing to a court in a situation like this. It's got to be in the public record. So it's going to come out one way or the other. The media, of course, does need to be responsible in how they cover it. The guy clearly has serious issues. And what I would note again is that on the right, we look at these shooters and we say these guys are crazy. And on the left, they look at it and they say, oh, well, all these people on this side must be violent, just like this person. We tend to blame the individuals for their actions, and the left tends to blame the collective soul of America for something like this. John, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show, John.
Hello, from Peachtree City.
Hi there.
Looking at this new debate coming up, Trump's supposedly declined it. What he should do is neither accept nor decline it. Just keep them guessing. They'll probably think he won't show, but show up at the last second and walk in, which will probably fluster Harris, who can't think on her feet, much less even when she is fully briefed and practiced. But I think that might be a good way to just show what Harris is really like.
You know, that's actually genius. And I hope, well, I was told that someone is paid to listen to this program every day from the Trump campaign. So whoever you are, young staffer, you need to convey John's thoughts. This is actually brilliant. Insist you're not sure or you're not going, and at the last minute, fly to Atlanta, show up on that debate stage, completely flummox Kamala Harris for having the audacity to show up and be there. I absolutely think that's a fantastic idea. And they absolutely should follow along with that. Now, whether or not they actually do, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, look,
everybody's offered him advice before and they haven't listened, so who knows?
Yeah, who actually knows? All right, Jim, I gotta let you hit the drop button because my call screening here has completely frozen up on me. We don't want to leave John on the phone the rest of the day as we carry on with Joe. Thank you. There we go. So, y'all, so you should see this setup. So I'm in this hotel room. I've got my mixer. I've got my little device that connects me to the show. I got my laptop, and then I have my iPad here to do the call screening. And so it runs through a program that connects to a computer that then displays the screen. But the Wi-Fi is so consumed with doing the radio show that poor old call screening software is running a little slow. That's all right. Now, I got to bring you up to speed on what's happening with the Israeli situation, because, boy, this has taken a turn. The Israelis, I can't stop laughing about this. Someone very clearly has told the Israelis where the munitions are for Hezbollah. Now, I want to back up to put Hezbollah in perspective for you. I mentioned this the other day with William Buckley. Hezbollah has been around since 1982. In 1985, I know it was 1985 because I was in Mr. Bruskus's class, so it had to be 5th grade. I'm in Mr. Bruskus's class. And the other teacher, I can't remember her name, the other 5th grade teacher came into Mr. Bruskus's classroom, whispers in his ear, he whispers back, she leaves the room. About 3 or 4 minutes later, she comes back in with a piece of paper. She gives it to him. We're in the middle of, I think it's science class when this happens. And she gives him a piece of paper, and he looks at it. And he says, "You know what? Let's continue this class outside. Everybody take all your stuff out. Looks like we're gonna wrap up the class outside, and those of you who want to walk home after that, you get to walk home. Then this is before lunchtime, and everybody else, your parents are gonna come. We're gonna have like the rest of the day off from school." That was it. In 5th grade, you have enough self-awareness to realize something's not right. We have this massive football field at our school that they spent a lot of money putting grass down because it's the desert. It's Dubai. It was sand in 1st grade. They build a football field / soccer field. So we all go out there, and we realize that everybody else in the school is also headed to the soccer field, which is well away from all the buildings. And they start doing head counts. We're clearly not finishing our science class. At which point, the principal, Mr. Middlebrooks, who actually passed away recently, announces with a bullhorn that those of us who are within walking distance from the school who normally walk need to leave immediately and head home. And that those who are picked up need to stay on the soccer field well away from the buildings. Hezbollah has planted a bomb in the school, or at least we were told. Hezbollah is the terror group that is in Lebanon. Hezbollah tried to kill me when I was a kid. They actually had to come in with sweepers, and ever after, when we went into school, they had armed guards at every gate and entrance to the school, and everything had to be checked. In fact, they started serving. We didn't have like a little cafeteria at the school, but they brought in, actually, of all things, a Hardee's. They put a Hardee's in the school. And you stopped bringing your lunch to school because the guards would literally like open up your sandwich to see if there were explosives inside there. It was disgusting. And they would wear latex gloves, mind you, but still, it was like they weren't changing gloves after each sandwich. It was you come through, they're searching your lunch bag, they're searching everything. You come into the campus. And that started then because Hezbollah decided that we were a soft target they wanted to blow up. Well, Hezbollah is a bad news group, and I'm perfectly happy seeing these people get wiped out after what they tried to do to me and my family. And Israel in Lebanon, apparently someone has been telling them where all of the weapons caches are. So Hezbollah launched a number of missiles yesterday at Israel. Now, it is obviously true that one of the things Israel did is they watched where the missiles were being launched from, and then they fired at those locations. But also they have fired at a number of other locations where there are weapons depots. And one of them, I feel bad for the people who live in the apartment complex, but clearly a Hezbollah operative had rockets inside his apartment. Israel blew it up today, and it looked like they blew up a fireworks factory. I mean, it's just explosion after explosion, rocket after rocket after rocket after rocket shooting out of this guy's apartment. And it wound up the after effects of this guy and all the rockets blown up is the whole apartment complex got leveled. And I'm sure a lot of people died, and they'll blame Israel, but it's this guy had a weapons depot in an apartment in Beirut. Hezbollah is launching these attacks at Israel, but they've been so decapitated they can't fire accurately, and they can't fire repeatedly, rapidly enough to overcome the Iron Dome defenses of Israel. What Israel has done is remarkable. It is genuinely remarkable. They clearly infiltrated Iranian intelligence. By the way, one of the deputy heads of Iranian intelligence has been killed by Iran because they believe he was a Mossad spy. So they have compromised the Hezbollah supply chain. They've compromised Iranian intelligence. They've sown distrust between Hezbollah and Iran. They've sown distrust within Hezbollah and the units of Hezbollah. They've decapitated one of the main units of Hezbollah, killing 60 people, including all 14 leaders of the organization, all of whom collaborated in killing the U.S. Marines back in 1983. The institutional knowledge of Hezbollah has been wiped out because Iran has killed so many of the senior leadership. This has been a remarkable play by Israel. What is notable to me is the Biden administration being upset with Israel. And Iran is now warning of dangerous consequences. And everyone is claiming that Israel provoked this. Israel hadn't provoked this. It hasn't gotten a lot of media coverage. But since October 8th of 2023, Hezbollah on the northern end of Israel at the Lebanese border has fired so many rockets, 50,000 Israelis are living as refugees in middle and southern Israel. So overnight, the IDF hit over 300 Hezbollah targets during two major rounds of strikes. The second round of strikes followed a warning from the Israeli Defense Force spokesperson, Admiral Daniel Hagari, to the public in southern Lebanon to evacuate areas where the terror group had stored rockets or conducted other activities. Lebanon received more than 80,000 suspected Israeli call attempts asking people to evacuate the area. Following the strikes, the Lebanese Health Ministry announced that 100 people had been killed, more than 300 wounded from the attacks. But notice what Israel did. They took the time to send phone calls to everyone they possibly could, telling them to get out. This is the sixth round of massive airstrikes on Hezbollah since last week. They're targeting weapons depots in the Bekaa Valley, where Hezbollah has stored most of their munitions to use against Israel. A senior Hezbollah official, Ali Abu-Rari, was apparently killed in one of the strikes. They've continued to go after these guys. This is a remarkable collaboration between defense and intelligence, between the IDF and the Mossad. They've done a really brilliant job ruining Hezbollah's ability to wage war. Hezbollah has declared itself now in open warfare with Israel, and they can't mount a response. Iran says it's going to do something, but it's very notable that Iran itself has not been able to launch ballistic missiles towards Israel. They just haven't been capable of doing much of a show of force. I don't know what's going to come, but right now Israel is on its A game and clearly looks like it knows what it's doing and has the intelligence to disrupt both Iran and Hezbollah. Good for them. Now, let me tell you about my bank, Old Glory Bank. I had to use my debit card last night at an ATM, and it's not an Old Glory ATM. It was a Wells Fargo ATM. Didn't have any problems. I never do, of course, because it's Old Glory Bank. Old Glory Bank is my bank, and it can be your bank. All you have to do is go to oldglorybank.com, fill out the form online. It takes less than 8 minutes to get yourself a savings account and a checking account at no fee, mind you. You can also do loans from Old Glory Bank. Now, here's the thing that sets them apart. In addition to be a highly innovative online bank, they were formed by conservatives for conservatives because they've seen the debanking trends happening in this country where progressives take control of banks and start pressuring those banks to close the bank accounts of conservatives or gun stores or problematic conservative companies. Old Glory Bank was started by conservatives for conservatives. They are online, but you can even deposit cash into this online bank, unlike many online banks. They've been highly innovative. They've been very good. And you can get loans, and you can get mortgages, and you can treat them just like a real bank because that's what they are. They are a real bank, and they happen to be my bank. You can get in a custodial account for your kids as well. No fee checking, no fee savings. Great bank accounts. OldGloryBank.com. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. This is breaking news. The Israeli government has just declared a special situation for the nation of Israel. That's essentially a state of emergency, allowing Israel to implement emergency protocols for civilian protection, safety measures, potential curfews, and restricted movements in high-risk areas. This has just happened in the last little while we've been on air. The government has approved this special status change across the country, signaling heightened alert and emergency measures after hundreds of missiles and drones from Hezbollah fired and Israel returned fire. This situation is escalating in the Middle East with a reciprocal response coming from Hezbollah, and Iran now saying it does plan a response to Israel. So if you're just tuning in here, breaking news, Israel declaring a quote-unquote special situation for their homeland, which amounts to a state of emergency. Israel has also moved in and taken over Al Jazeera's news complex in the West Bank and shut it down, chasing reporters off, saying it will be closed for 45 days. So we'll keep an eye on the situation in Israel as it continues to escalate. A lot of missiles being fired back and forth, but Hezbollah not having the capacity to overwhelm Iron Dome as they had believed that they would, and Israel clearly knowing where a number of the missiles were that were targeted. So we'll keep an eye on this. The start of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you're buying a building, if you need a heavy equipment loan, if you are buying a franchise, First Liberty's been making their own decisions since the 90s. They might be able to help you. FirstLibertyGA.com has all their contact info. Spend 10 minutes with them. See if they're a fit for you. See if you're a fit for them. FirstLibertyGA.com. FirstLibertyGA.com. All right. We have way more to talk about when we come back, including the economic news that's out there. And a lot of people thinking that even with this interest rate cut of 0.5%, that it's not going to have a massive amount of impact on the economy. And also, there are more and more concerns about electronic warfare. There's a huge story in the Wall Street Journal today. It's their big story. Electronic warfare spooks airlines, pilots, and air safety officials as hundreds of daily flights are running into GPS spoofing, where hackers are essentially telling airplanes that you are at altitudes they're not or in locations they're not. And it's beginning to affect pilots globally, not just in the United States. More and more of the online vulnerabilities that we're dealing with in the country is kind of spooky. American Airlines captain Dan Carey knew his cockpit equipment was lying to him when an alert began blaring to pull up as his Boeing 777 passed over Pakistan in March at an altitude of 32,000 feet, far above any terrain. The warning stemmed from a kind of electronic warfare that hundreds of civilian pilots are encountering on a daily basis, GPS spoofing. The alert turned out to be false, but illustrated how fake signals that militaries use to ward off drones and missiles are beginning to permeate commercial aircraft, including U.S. Airlines international flights. In fact, I follow a guy who's a 747 pilot, and he was saying people probably don't realize that there are whole swaths of the world now that you're not allowed to fly over. For example, you can't fly over any of Russia right now because of the war in Ukraine. And so all planes are being forced into a narrow corridor where these sorts of situations are making things more and more dangerous. We'll get into this and the economic impact of the interest rates coming down when we come back live from Kiowa Island.